That's Koricki with Clean Kill here on Vaquero Radio, only on the Valley's student station. Good morning, Vaqueros. It's Friday, February 4th, 10:04 a.m. You're listening to Office Hours with DJ Doc V. Um, Great suggestion from our friend Steve in Spokane there with a suggestion for the Koricki Clean Kill. For those of you that are familiar with Office Hours, you might have been listening and said, it sounds a little bit like Fugazi. Well, as a matter of fact, Koricki, an American punk rock band made up of Ian Mackay, Minor Threat, Fugazi, and the Evens, Amy Farina, the Warmers and the Evens, and Joe Lally, also from Fugazi. So definitely some interesting overtures there with a little bit of a throwback to some Fugazi, which we're going to do here in a second. We're going to have some Fugazi so you can listen to both and see how you feel about both. Good morning, Vaqueros. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here for the next hour. It is 40 degrees, in the Rio Grande Valley, upper Rio Grande Valley. Looks like we're only going to hit a high of 43 degrees this afternoon with some partly cloudy skies. And we have a wind chill advisory. You know, I spend most of my life living in Minnesota, so a wind chill advisory is nothing new. But I'm sure for the folks in Brownsville, the National Weather Service suggesting that they make preparations for very cold wind chills expected. The cold wind chills will cause frostbite in as little as 30 minutes to exposed skin. Expect wind chills to range from 30 degrees above zero to 20 degrees above zero. Mercy be. Makes me feel like I'm back in Minnesota. Now to 1 p.m. this afternoon, there's that wind chill advisory. But 40 degrees now. We'll see how it if it gets down a little bit. Although when I woke up, it said, it's 39 degrees, but the wind chill makes it feel like 30. Brr. At least for those of us in South Texas. This is DJ Doc V. I'll be with you for the next hour. We've got This Day in History coming up at the bottom of the hour, as well as another poem from the 2018 edition of Gallery Magazine. This one is called My Friend on the Other Side. That sounds interesting. I know. It'll be a good one. So make sure you stay listening to Office Hours. We do that at about 50 minutes after the hour or so. We do the poem. And then at the bottom of the hour, we do the This Day in History. But for now, let's get back to the music. Here's a little bit of the aforementioned Fugazi, only on Vaquero Radio. That's Chicago with Beginnings from way back in the early 70s. Little Chicago right after they became Chicago, or right after they became Chicago after being Chicago Transit Authority. That's a song called Beginnings. And before that, you heard Jackson Browne, The Pretender. We started that off with a little Fugazi. He hangs out with Boombatsi, right? Yeah. And Suggestion from their 13 Songs album. That's from way back in 1989. 13 Songs, Fugazi's most successful release. Certain sources report the album's total worldwide sales at being over 3 million. So pretty good for a little bitty punk rock band from Washington, D.C. The song Suggestion. We've got some great music coming up for you for the remaining time here for Office Hours. A little bit of Leonard Cohen, Massive Attack. Got a great poem picked out for you from the 2018 edition of Gallery Magazine. Some more student work by Cassandra Garate. So we'll be reading that poem in a little bit. And then at the bottom of the hour, we'll be doing This Day in History. But for now, let's get back to the music with another classic from the Fugees.
Strumming my pain with his finger.
Only on Vaquero Radio. That's Audio Slave here on Vaquero Radio with Cochise from their self-titled initial album. If that sounds a little bit like Rage Against the Machine, yeah. Tom Morello, lead singer from Soundgarden, now the late, what the heck is his name? Chris Cornell. Sorry, little brain issue there. So Chris Cornell and Tom Morello from Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, forming Audio Slave from their self-titled album that was Cochise. Before that, it was the Fugees with Killing Me Softly. Where else? Where else except college radio are you going to hear the Fugees followed by Audioslave? Nowhere else. Only on the Valley Student Station, yo. This is DJ Doc V. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week. No, I'll just be here for another few minutes, actually. Another half hour or so. But at the bottom of the hour, as we normally do on office hours, let's look at what's going on today in history. Today, on February 4th, 1974, Patty Hearst, the 19-year-old granddaughter of newspaper publisher William Randolph Hearst, is kidnapped from her apartment in Berkeley, California, by 3 armed strangers. Her fiancé, Stephen Weed, was beaten and tied up, along with a neighbor who tried to help. Witnesses reported seeing a struggling Hearst being carried away and blindfolded, and she was put in the trunk of a car. Neighbors who came out into the street were forced to take cover after the kidnappers fired their guns to cover their escape. 3 days later, the Symbionese Liberation Army, a small U.S. leftist group, announced in a letter to a Berkeley radio station that it was holding Hearst as a prisoner of war. 4 days later, the SLA demanded that the Hearst family give $70 in foodstuffs to every needy person from Santa Rosa to Los Angeles. That's a pretty big ask. This done, said the SLA, negotiation would begin for the return of Patricia Hearst. Randolph Hearst hesitantly gave away some $2 million worth of food. The SLA then called this inadequate and asked for $6 million more. The Hearst Corporation said it would donate the additional sum if Patty was released unharmed. This sounds like a tragedy, right? I mean, wow, really an innocent child being kidnapped for political purposes. This story took a bit of a turn, though. In April, this is April of 1974, the situation changed dramatically when a surveillance camera took a photo of Patty Hearst participating in an armed robbery of a San Francisco bank. She was also spotted during a robbery of a Los Angeles store. She later declared in a tape sent to the authorities that she had joined the SLA of her own free will. Really interesting story, Patty Hearst here. She's still alive. She was born February 20th, 1954. She initially was sentenced to 35 years in prison after being brought up on charges for being convicted of. She was convicted of bank robbery in 1976, but her sentence was commuted by President Jimmy Carter, and later she received a full pardon from President Bill Clinton. So just a bizarre kind of story, Patty Hearst there. So that was this date in 1974. In 2004, I know Jan already knows this, you guys, but in 2004, on February 4th, Facebook is launched.
Woo!
Huh? I mean, we should have a party here. Facebook is launched in 2000. A Harvard sophomore named Mark Zuckerberg launches The Facebook, a social media website he had built in order to connect Harvard students with one another. The rest is history. Am I right? The rest is history. In 1913, civil rights icon Rosa Parks is born. Rosa Louise Macaulay, known to history by her married name Rosa Parks, born in Tuskegee, Alabama on February 4th, 1913. A lifelong civil rights activist. See, here's something that a lot of people don't know about Rosa Parks. She didn't give up her seat on the bus, and people, it was a poor old lady. She was, tired, and she just was, had enough of it and finally just decided, I'm not going to. No, she was a trained activist. She had done this multiple times, but, refused to give up her seat on the bus in the hopes that she would be arrested so that they could challenge, in particular, Birmingham, Alabama's segregation on public transit. So civil rights icon Rosa Parks, born this day in 1913. This day in 1789, George Washington, the commander of the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War, is unanimously elected as the first president of the United States by all 69 presidential electors who cast their votes. John Adams, who received 34 votes, was elected vice president. What else? Let's see. 1983, singer-songwriter Karen Carpenter dies. Karen Carpenter, a singer who long suffered under the burden of the expectations that came with pop stardom, died on February 4th, 1983, succumbing to heart failure brought on by her long, unpublicized struggle with anorexia. That was 1983. And then finally, in 1922, on February 4th, the Ford Motor Company acquires the failing luxury automaker Lincoln Motor Company for the low bargain basement price of $8 million. The acquisition came at a time when Ford, founded in 1903, was losing market share to its competitor General Motors, which offered a whole bunch of, they had Oldsmobile and Buick and Chevy and GMC. So Ford buys Lincoln in 1922, and Lincoln's still around. And not all of those General Motors brands are still around. So that's this day in history on this February 4th at 10:41 a.m. and a temperature of 37 degrees here in the Rio Grande Valley. Wow, 37 degrees here in Edinburgh on the beautiful UTRGV campus. Got about another 20 minutes. I'll be with you here. Don't go anywhere because we've got the poem titled "My Friend on the Other Side." Sounds intriguing. I'll be reading that here in a few minutes. But for now, let's get back to the music with a little bit of Leonard Cohen, only on Vaquero Radio. Oh, one of my personal favorites. Really, really love that song. Massive Attack from album of same name. That was Protection, only on Vaquero Radio. Good morning, Vaqueros. 10:52 here in the beautiful Rio Grande Valley. 37 degrees, Burr. At this time, as we normally do on office hours, I'm going to read a poem for you. This one's from the 2018 Gallery Magazine. If you're unfamiliar with Gallery Magazine, you can pick one up in several places on campus. They are free. This is a magazine of creative works by UTRGV students. And, I've got a whole library of past editions. And this one is from the 2018 edition. It's called My Friend on the Other Side by Cassandra Garate. I looked in the mirror, and she stared back, her eyes so dark, so black. Her face twisted in a smile. Everything about her seemed so vile. At first, I was disgusted. Who was she to look at me? Her eyes so full of mischievous glee. She whispered to me, "Why are you so sad?" I stared, bewildered, losing the breath I had. She laughed, and I left, just like that. There was a theft. I went back to the mirror, every time just seeing her. Always the same question that drove me mad. Why are you so sad? I would leave again. More get stolen. I wept and wept, crying over the theft. Oh, why? Oh, why? Receiving a question each time, then suddenly a light appeared before me, full of promises and a family. He stared upon me with understanding. They pushed me to keep standing. I breathed a breath unlike others, feeling light, as gentle as a feather. The tears dried from my tired eyes, choosing no longer to hide. I won't leave again. No more will get stolen. I stand before the mirror. I see only her. She laughed and asked with ever malice she had, "Why are you so sad?" I spoke, "Because you were lonely, because you are me. I want what is mine and yours. I want it even with its scars." She stared at me with hurt. With tear-ridden eyes, she returned our heart. "Take care of it," she begged. I smiled and said, "I will, my friend." That's a poem called My Friend on the Other Side by Cassandra Garate from the 2018 edition of Gallery Magazine, produced by UTRGV Student Media and the beautifully creative UTRGV students, with some poetry there, and Gallery Magazine available at several locations throughout the UTRGV Edinburgh and Brownsville campus. So thanks for tuning in, Vaqueros. Got a couple more songs coming at you, actually maybe one or two. Otherwise, have a great weekend. We start, week 4 already, next week in the spring semester. So that means for my Paul's 2305 students, they've got exam number 1. So hopefully there's, 4 weeks? That's enough time to be doing exam number 1. Anyway, let's leave you here with a little bit of Roxy music. Another one of my big favorites, Virginia Plain, here on the Valley's student station, Vaquero Radio.